Welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette, featuring sysadmin expert Don Pizzette, DevOps engineer Justin Dennison, security specialist Daniel Lowry, and Peter.
Hello and welcome to Technado with Don Pizzette. I'm your host, Peter Van Rysdam. We've got the old crew back together after a little change up last couple of weeks. So we have Don there. Don, how you doing?
I am doing great. Pumped up about today's episode.
Justin be to this side of me. Justin, how's it going over there?
It's not nearly as hot in this room anymore, so I'm doing pretty good.
Even with all that hair?
Yeah, and that's because I got the fan cranked up, turned the lights down.
I heard barbershops have reopened, so...
It's iffy. But how else am I supposed to look like a game show host?
That's true. All right. And we've also got Daniel Lowry up there, who is still managing to get haircuts, clearly. How you doing?
Why are you asking so many questions all the time?
You'd think I'm trying to social engineer you with questions like that?
I used to be paranoid.
That's one of my top security questions. When was your last haircut?
Yeah. Yes.
Got you now, Daniel.
Oh, man. That would be horrible because I'd be like, oh, that's a good question.
Tomorrow.
Yesterday? And it's like, no, you're locked out of your account.
You hairy beast. All right. We also have a guest joining us remotely. We have Dennis Hunter with us today, who is not in San Francisco, despite what that Zoom background will tell you. Dennis, how you doing?
I am quite well. And yourself?
I'm pretty good. You're actually, where, North Carolina, was it?
We are in the great state of North Carolina.
Oh, I'm sorry. Isn't that a Commonwealth? No, that's Virginia.
No, that's Virginia. That's those Yankees, the guys north of us.
What are you talking about? Most of that state is a bunch of Southerners.
Yankee is relative, Justin.
No. Once you hit Manassas, all right, I'll give you that. That's Southern Maryland.
There you go.
But the southern part of Virginia, it's
yeah.
Yeah, Justin grew up in a cave in Western Virginia there.
I like how his accent got super
Personal
thick,
offense.
like, once you hit Manassas.
Hold
Yeah, I do declare.
I can't help it. I mean, you're like Virginia, and I'm like, oh, I'm like the Manchurian candidate, except when you say Virginia, I turn full like
Pavlovian, yeah.
I'm Manchurian redneck.
So, Dennis, I don't know how to introduce you because you've got a lot of careers and a lot of things going on. So,
Yes,
how do I address you, sir?
Well, I like to think of myself as ex-Navy that has made a career in the IT field that now works at the orders of my Cisco people.
Makes sense. All right, that's a mouthful. So, I'll just say Dennis. But let's go ahead and get to know Dennis a little bit more and his background here in our first segment, rapid fire questions.
Who do you work for?
What's new?
Who are you?
What's happening?
What's wrong with you?
All right, Dennis, so you're going to have 45 seconds to a minute to answer a question. We're going to have 5. If you go over time, Peter's going to buzz you, and we're going to move on, regardless of whether you finished or not. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, Peter, take it away.
All right, so Dennis, you mentioned the Navy background, and I know that you do some instructing now as well. So I'd like to know a little bit more about, did you get started in IT in the Navy, or was that something after the Navy that you went into? How did you start on your journey there?
Well, many years ago in the 70s, I joined the U.S. Navy, and the Navy was kind enough to put me into advanced electronics. And the first computer that I worked on was 22 feet long and 7 feet tall. And of course, computer electronics was relatively new then and exciting. And much more than the electronics side, I got into the computer side. So that started me off. And back then when I went to the Navy, they gave me 2 years worth of nothing but training. And after 2 years, I did 4 years in the fleet. I then turned around and went to work for the company that sells the F-14s to the Navy, and they gave me more training. That was Grumman Aerospace. And I got to travel around the world with the Navy, got to travel around the world with Grumman Aerospace, then went to work for IBM, got to travel around the world with IBM, wrote a book on clusters with IBM, moved on to working with Red Hat. I was a product manager for a few years, then was a product manager over at Cisco, came back to Cisco, and I do cybersecurity with them now with Stealthwatch.
I'll tell you what, Dennis, that's a lot going on there. I heard clusters, IBM. I hear you do some security, AWS. But, I have a similar thing where I'm all over the place, but I always have that core couple of things that I'm interested in. So what are you most passionate about in IT?
Eating.
Love it.
So I say eating in that I love to learn. I like to find out, what it is I don't know, what it is I'm short in, what is there possible that I could get blindsided by. So in doing that, like how most people listen to music, I actually listen to books in my car. I'm usually listening to some kind of technical show or some podcast, some information. I take that time while I'm commuting to learn because I figured that I'll worry about Beyonce when Beyonce sends me a check. Until then, I'm learning.
That would be an interesting career right there when Beyonce is sending you a check. So I know you mentioned that you work for Cisco, but I also know that you're involved with the Cyber Synergy Consulting Group. So can you tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah, well, Cyber Synergy Consulting, you catch them on cybersynergy.net, I believe. But they're a small minority-owned company. And via them and via their efforts, we got invited to the White House earlier this year. We went up there. We sat down with Secretary Mnuchin. It was a great thing. And what they do is they teach the military and other organizations. They do cybersecurity. We do cybersecurity support. We do training. I was with the training part. And in the training part, we get rented out to different schools and we go and train cybersecurity. Or we'll go on site. Someone's company might want their people trained in cybersecurity. We'll go train them. Or we'll train them in networking. Whatever thing comes up, we'll teach you. Have brain, will travel.
Now, Dennis, I've got a little birdie told me that you're involved with the Cisco Stealthwatch product. Very cool thing. There's a lot of network detection and response tools out there. What separates Stealthwatch from the others in the pack?
Very simple. The Cisco security portfolio. The Cisco has a very large portfolio of security products, and Stealthwatch works inside of their existing portfolio. So where you have a lot of other standalone, nice to have services, with Stealthwatch, you have something that works inside of and designed to work with many other products. Because most people in the SOC, they're not working on one thing. They don't have one problem to solve. So this is something that's inside of a family of other products that help you solve your overall security challenges.
All right, so last question. We've got 5 seconds left, but we'll go with it. I know you mentioned you worked with the F-14, so how excited are you for the new Top Gun movie that, I hope still comes out this year? I hope they don't delay that.
Well, very excited. I actually worked with the squadron that flew against Top Gun. We were the professional adversaries for the West Coast. So we were in the squadron, we were in the hangar right next door to Top Gun.
Was it all fake? Is it all fake, or was it?
No. Those guys are serious. Those guys, they pilots talk with their hands, and they're very serious.
All right, I'm excited to know what that means. But yeah, I can't wait to see that movie. Was that the computer you worked on, the F-14? How long did you say the first computer?
Right. VAST was a system that troubleshot the electronics inside of the F-14.
Was that USB?
So we lived on the aircraft carrier, and we lived in AIMD, which troubleshoots the electronics that you remove out of the F-14. And my brother worked on the flight deck with the F-14. So there were three brothers who were all in the Navy together, and we sailed on the ship together. It was really neat.
That's awesome. All right, well, let's use your security background and find out a little bit of insight on something that happened overseas in our next segment, Who Got Pwned?
Looks like you're about to get pwned.
Fatality.
Yeah!
All right, so we have this article from slashdot.com. Supercomputers breached across Europe to mine cryptocurrency. And I could read this entire article, Don, in about 2 seconds because it's like 2 lines, Slashdot likes to do. But that sounds like they should have had some better security in place for supercomputers.
So it's really interesting what happened here, right? Is that you got supercomputers, and we're talking about big ones that are designed to do teraflops per second of calculations and so on, that are used to perform, well, a lot of them are being used to study COVID-19 right now, because that's where a lot of our CPU resources need to be dedicated. And what happened was, at various points over the last week, they detected where CPU utilization was way higher than it was supposed to be on these machines, which I thought was kind of funny because I just figured they ran at 100% all the time. But that someone was Bitcoin mining on the supercomputers. And that's plural, not just one. Multiple supercomputers across Europe were compromised all in the same week. And there's a group, Cato Security, that did a full write-up on this, on exactly what happened. It's really interesting, is that attackers somehow managed to get a student's credentials to get into one of these supercomputers. And from there, that student had SSH certificates that allowed them to log into other supercomputers. Apparently, it's pretty common that they share engineers between the different projects. And at that point, the attackers were able to leapfrog from one computer to the next. And once they were in, they pulled off various privilege escalations to be able to take control of it. And one of the bigger ones, the Archer supercomputer, they actually got root level access to it. And so that computer is having to be completely wiped. But they had a pretty sophisticated attack that would erase the logs, would hide their tracks, and would Bitcoin mine. Apparently that was their primary goal.
I'm not surprised when you say sophisticated. I was looking up the CVE that they took advantage of to do privilege escalation. There's no, like, even POC out there that I could find. I was like exploit DV, you name it. I couldn't find anything that, just that there is a weakness. I think it was CVE 2020-15666 or something like that. Couldn't find a single. So that means they're writing their own exploit code, their own shell code, and they're smart.
Oh, so this isn't something that they could have patched for necessarily?
I don't know. I didn't check to see if there was a patch for that CVE specifically or not, but it most likely just takes advantage of some bug in the kernel or one of the pieces of software on there.
What makes you wonder how long something like this went on before they noticed that rise, or did they let that go for a little bit before? Has this been going on for months or days or hours?
So I wonder if these computers were, along that same line, if they haven't been used as often due to current times. Because I know in grad school, the supercomputers, like, you scheduled time, and those things were churning 24/7. So I don't know if, I wonder if it was because, like, people's jobs were getting kicked out of queue or something because there were no resources available. That's what, like, made them raise the red flag.
Yeah, in the case of the Archer supercomputer, it was being used to calculate out COVID-19 data. And so it was actively being used. And you're probably right. If they see the queues backing up, that means something else is taking priority. And even if they didn't have an exploit, the attackers had valid accounts to be able to log into these machines, and those accounts were able to launch jobs. So they would have been able to Bitcoin mine. They just wouldn't have been able to hide their tracks or establish persistence. But they were able to take advantage of other things. And so some of the supercomputers were hacked worse than others. But it just shows, like, these are multi-million, sometimes billion-dollar machines that get compromised just like your grandmother's home computer.
I mean, Dennis, were you ever involved in kind of the security side of some of these things with the devices that you worked on with the Navy or after the fact?
Well, it's so funny because when you said supercomputers, as you already know, I wrote a book on Linux clusters, and we had 1,000-node computer clusters. So one of the things I found is when they use the term supercomputer, were they talking about a cluster of Intel-based computers, or were they talking about IBM mainframes? Because if you notice, you very rarely hear of a mainframe getting hacked into. Whereas the supercomputers, I can see them running a Linux kernel, and therefore, because they're running Linux, they might have well-known exploits.
Yeah, I want to say that one of them was running HPUX. I don't know what the others were running. I'll have to look that up. I'm curious now.
And they were Intel platforms, probably.
But do we know that they weren't?
As opposed to IBM. Well, that's why I was differentiating between the clusters, which are Intel platform machines, and mainframes, which is a different architecture altogether.
Mm-hmm.
I can see them getting into the Intel machines, but it would be a little bit more difficult to get into the mainframes.
Yeah, that makes you think inside job or something if you're hearing about that. But I was going to say I think they're probably just mining the Bitcoin themselves
Yeah.
to pay for their electric bill to run these supercomputers, because that cannot be cheap.
Well, we just had halving day, so now it's twice as hard to mine Bitcoin.
That's why
So
you
I think
need
they
a
were just
supercomputer.
upgrading.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I can't do this from home anymore. I got to go ahead and bump the COVID-19 research so I can get this thing going.
And I'm Googling feverishly here, trying to find out what, at least the Archer, what it had. Apparently it's based on a Cray XC30, but that doesn't necessarily tell me what the architecture is.
Well, let's shift gears here. And Dennis, I'm curious, you mentioned, I think, what was it? Cybersynergy.net is where we can reach the Cybersynergy Consulting Group. But if people want to reach out to you, and because like I said, I know you do some training and that kind of thing. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Well, the best way to find me is on LinkedIn. Actually, and I do this with all of my students, I challenge them to go to LinkedIn and do a search for Dennis Rucker Hunter. And if you do that and you go to LinkedIn, you do a search for Dennis Rucker Hunter, I'll probably come up as the first person that you see. I'm almost semi-famous. I've got well over 10, 15,000 followers on LinkedIn. So I'm extremely easy to see. And I'm usually very responsive on LinkedIn. The Rucker part, by the way, for anyone that knows anything about basketball, is I'm related to the famous Malcolm Rucker, who has Rucker Park in New York. Everyone that knows about basketball knows about Rucker.
Yeah, that's like the blacktop courts up there, right?
Yes, that's my uncle. That's my mother's brother.
Oh, that's fantastic. Very cool. Yeah, I thought there's a documentary or something that I saw about those courts, so that's pretty cool.
And just for the record, Dennis was absolutely right. They're Intel Xeon processors, and it is running the Cray Linux environment, which is based on SUSE Linux. So
All of them across the board, or
no, just the Archer
This is
was
the
the one
Archer
that I
one.
pulled
Okay.
here. Yep.
Gotcha. Well, that explains it. All right. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for taking the time with us today, and taking the time out of your schedule. I know things are a little crazy right now with everything going on, so appreciate you jumping on with us.
Well, thank you guys for having me. And I want to say before I go, you guys are awesome. I got to where I am by taking training with you. You are some of the best training I've come across. And being someone that's in the business, I would advise everyone, it's worth the subscription. Believe me.
We're going to take that sound bite out and turn that into a commercial there. I assume he was talking to you guys, the actual trainers. But
I love these guys.
Hey, Dennis, thank you so much.
Send shirts.
Send shirts. Send shirts. All right. Yeah, if you can bring them to the White House or wear it to the White House next time. I want to see you standing up
Good
there.
idea.
Yeah.
We can help each other. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
You have a blessed day.
All right, we'll talk to you later, and stay tuned, everybody. We got more Technado coming up right after this.
Do you know what's better than being an IT Pro TV member? Being a member for free. Hi, I'm Don Pizzette, co-founder and edutainer here at IT Pro TV. Once you sign up for an IT Pro TV personal membership subscription, you'll automatically be part of our referral program. Then all you have to do is share your personal referral link and code with your friends and colleagues. Every time one signs up, you get money off your subscription. Sign up enough and your membership is free. That's right, access to all your favorite IT training, totally free. Kind of feels like stealing, doesn't it? Check out the link below to learn how to get your code and start sharing today.
All right, welcome back to Technado with Don Pizzette. Thank you to Dennis for joining us. We've got a lot of news to get to, so let's go ahead and jump right in. Our first article is from worldcommunitygrid.org, which I don't know if that's our normal sites, but actually, is this part of IBM? Looks like it might be, but anyway.
I wonder if that's in the headline.
I like how you're trying to figure it out, like in the middle of the pod. Hey, what is this?
Yeah, well,
It's an article.
I've never heard of this site.
Interesting.
Reading stupid.
News.
Reading stupid.
Man, learn something new every day.
It's almost like he didn't read the rundown before the podcast.
No, I'm saying is this site is actually okay, yeah.
So the headline is IBM sponsored World Community Grid.
Well, I was looking at the actual article, and on the article there's no headline anymore. So you're right. I got to go back to the sheet here. IBM sponsored World Community Grid leverages distributed computing to fight COVID-19. So are they referring to the actual computers that were taken down to mine Bitcoin?
No, actually they aren't, but it is the same idea. So those supercomputers cost tons and tons of money, and there's only so many of them on the planet, and they're certainly out of the reach of the average human being. But many of us, most of us, in fact, practically, well, pretty much everybody listening right now, likely has a computer at home, a computer at work, devices that are laying around that aren't actually using their entire CPU most of the time. And so what these guys are doing is they're leveraging the Folding at Home project, which was used in SETI at home and a few other different things. And basically what you can do is donate CPU time on your own machine to go to COVID-19 calculating. And what they're doing is they're studying how various proteins react with the COVID-19 virus, which is actually the SARS-CoV-2. So they're testing that, they're modeling it. Well, there are billions and billions of iterations of this model. And so by distributing that out over regular consumer PCs around the globe, they are able to achieve numbers that rival, if not beat, many of the supercomputers that are out there. So it's a way that people can kind of volunteer their hardware that's sitting there idle, and not 100% of the time. You can still use your computer and stuff, but then when your computer is idle, it'll sit there and process some of these models out for them.
Remember that those old there was some thing that would pay you to surf the web. It was like Net Zero or something, and a friend of mine wrote one of those scripts that just made your mouse move. So I could do this and basically probably make some money, right?
I think the idea is that the computer's not doing anything, and then it uses your CPU cycle.
Oh, it's not going to make my mouse move, too?
Right.
No, I mean, it might make your mouse move. Didn't they shut down SETI at home?
Yeah, they just wrapped that one up. They said they had collected more data than they could possibly analyze, which made me wonder why they didn't just go ahead and do another folding project to analyze
the data. Yeah.
Didn't the United States Air Force just confirm the identity, or at least that they have seen what do they call UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon? And
They did. I think they're hiding that kind of stuff during this pandemic. Like
it came out like last week.
Yeah.
They showed it.
No one's going to talk about it. It's not going to dominate the news. Just
We
put
all
it out
know
now.
that UFOs are 5G tower calls.
That's right. Burn them, some will get you down.
And Wi-Fi, what was it, Wi-Fi 6?
Yeah.
Well,
Low
this
orbit satellites.
project has only been running for, I guess, about 2 weeks, and it's already generated over 1,025 years worth of CPU time. So, had they had a single computer running these calculations, it would have taken over 1,000 years to get to the point that it's in today. And in fact, just yesterday, it did 297 years worth of calculations all inside of one day. So it's just a way that people can contribute and potentially lead to finding a way to combat the coronavirus.
Sounds like a good way to get that Bitcoin.
Yeah. So it's funny that you say that, because I'm like, well, could we write browser extensions that's how you, like when you visit a research facility's website, it just starts churning? Like those crypto miners?
So you can, and hold that thought, because we got an article that talks about that in just a few minutes.
So, big question is, have they figured out coronavirus yet? I mean, with all that,
It's a virus,
power?
they said.
And it has like a corona around it.
Yeah.
So the best scientific minds.
Yeah, took us 1,000 years.
They
of
cracked the
computing.
code.
Yeah, it's bad.
We joke, but I think Justin and Daniel really did just sum up what the scientific community has so far.
That's about it. True. It's yes. We've confirmed. Wash your hands.
Yes.
So,
People are sick.
If you get it, you will be sick.
yeah, or not.
Maybe
possibly.
die.
Yeah. All right.
Don't lick doorknobs.
Yeah.
I don't think
Stop
we needed a
eating.
computer to tell us.
Stop eating off the floor in the bathroom. Yeah, it's a bad idea.
Even your bathroom. Your bathroom is
Wait,
also
are
disgusting.
they using my webcam too? How do they know that?
It's idle right now.
I got to make sure I close the webcam before I turn my computer over to them. All right, our next article is from ZDNet.com. Microsoft takes a step towards phasing out 32-bit PC support for Windows 10. New Windows 10 PCs, starting with the May 2020 update 2004, will be able to run 64-bit Windows 10 only. Existing PCs are unaffected. I don't know, but I feel like we talked about this a while ago. This has already happened, or did they announce that it was coming, and now they're actually pushing this out?
So we've actually talked about this twice. So once when Microsoft announced that it was coming, and then we also talked about it with Apple, because Apple made the switch to completely eliminating 32-bit. Apple actually went a step further in that they only have a 64-bit OS, and they completely eliminated support for 32-bit apps. Microsoft hasn't done that. So Microsoft is keeping a 64-bit OS that is capable of running 32-bit binaries. What they're doing is just saying, hey, if you're Dell, HP, all these hardware manufacturers, they can now only get 64-bit Windows 10. So any computer purchased after May will be 64-bit and running the 64-bit OS. If you're already running the 32-bit OS, that's fine. But even at 64-bit, you can still run 32-bit applications. It'll be years before Microsoft finally cuts those off, but it will happen eventually, and it'll be a big deal. It's been a big deal inside of the Apple world, too. A lot of people didn't realize some of the apps they had that were 32-bit and are now struggling to kind of adapt over.
Wasn't there something in, there was some like contention in Ubuntu, like the newest release of Ubuntu, because they were trying to get, like, start phasing out 32-bit.
Yep.
And everybody was like, no, we still need those, right?
Yeah, the big problem there was they were trying to actually eliminate the 32-bit libraries, which software like Wine, which allows you to run Windows applications on top of Linux, it depends on those 32-bit libraries. And many of the video games that get ported to Linux would have been broken. The Valve, the company that makes Steam, they said they were going to switch over to Fedora instead of Ubuntu for their official distro. And so with that, Ubuntu backed off and said, okay, I guess we can keep the 32-bit libraries.
Oops.
Yeah.
So this doesn't have anything to do with Windows 10X or 1010 or whatever the heck we're calling it.
No, not yet.
Okay.
Nope.
But just new PCs that are coming out starting with the May 2020 update. So
yeah.
Now.
It will be nice because a lot of times I get tripped up. I'm on a computer and I don't realize it's 32-bit. I just assume it's 64-bit, and so you get tripped up on it. But after May, anything newer than that will be 64-bit.
Yeah, you'll know because it doesn't work.
I just thought of something. My mind went crazy. Nerd funny, nerd weird. Windows 1010 in binary would still be Windows 10. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's weird.
That has to be the nerdiest thing
Yes.
I've ever heard you say, Dan. I mean, for an IT, Justin's doing some math.
He's doing it right now. I can see his brain moving. He's like, hold on.
You got the 8-bit and the 2-bit.
You got an 8-bit and a 2-bit. Put that
Yeah,
together. There's that
yeah.
10.
Sorry, I
Man,
was adding an extra bit in there. I was like, no, wait, hold on.
Someone get Justin a whiteboard, or a piece of scratch paper.
It's going to look like a montage of a scientific.
And then for a moment, I was like, Daniel, you can't put an X in binary.
Yeah.
You don't even get an X in hexadecimal.
I'll do whatever the hell I want.
We've got a GIF of Justin doing like the Zach Galifianakis math thing.
Oh,
like, from
yeah,
The Hangover, where the numbers are flying in front of him
yeah.
that were used in a video. So
Throw that on.
that was like watching that happen right there. So thank you for that, Justin.
We just blew his mind.
I aim to please.
Yeah. All right, our next article is from the great people over at arstechnica.com. Chrome will soon block resource-draining ads. Here's how to turn it on now. Fed up with crypto-jacking ads? Google developers have you covered. So is this why Chrome is taking up so much of my computing power? It's not them, it's the ads.
Well, probably not, but
Okay.
maybe. So, that idea that Justin had just a few minutes ago, he wasn't the first person to think of it, although he invented it in parallel. So websites and nefarious actors have found where they can actually create active advertisements that embed a crypto coin miner. So when you're viewing a website that contains an ad, it can actually be mining cryptocurrency right there in the background. And when you leave the page, it stops. But for a few moments, they have the ability to leverage your CPU cycles. And what Google found was that these were pretty easy to identify. And there's a really cool chart in the article for any of you guys that check it out online, where they were showing how these ads really only make up 0.3% of the ads that are out there in use in the market, but they account for 27% of the network data consumed and 28% of the CPU usage consumed across all advertisements, even the good ones. So it's a way big imbalance. And so Google said, well, hey, it's pretty easy to spot that based on the utilization. The numbers are ridiculous. And so they're rolling out a change in the system where if they see an ad behaving like that, and they set the threshold way low. If I remember it, it's like 0.8% or something, where if an ad breaks that 0.8% barrier, then it will just disable the ad. And you'll see a message instead that says ad removed with a details link you can click on. So you could actually potentially turn the ad back on if you wanted it, I suppose. But that way you don't get these crazy CPU intensive things running in the background. And so like Justin's suggestion of, hey, when I go to a science website, it just automatically starts mining, that would fall under this.
So I wonder if they're determining that utilization, what the sampling rate is, because if it's 0.8%, but they're sampling, like, is there a way that I could cause peaks and then like back off to still fall under the 0.8%?
You can, push the curve
Yeah, it'd be like, oh, lot, and then nothing.
Well, this
and then
says
over, the 2 seconds, it's still 0.8%.
this says ads that use more CPU resources or network data than 99.9% of overall ads will be blocked, which translates to 4 megabytes of network data or 15 seconds of CPU usage in any 30-second period. So, yeah, I mean, I guess if you flooded a bunch of those out there that push the curve across, then you could.
Yeah, and with a calculation thing like this, speed is how they benefit, right? So if you slow it down enough, it becomes not really a viable opportunity for them. So that's basically what Google's trying to do. Firefox actually rolled out something last year that did the same thing, and so Chrome's just kind of playing catch up on it.
Now, when we say Chrome is doing this, is this something that gets built into other Chromium browsers then, or specifically just Google Chrome?
So it depends, right? Google develops it, and they bake it into Chromium, and then all the things that are derived off of Chromium can choose to adopt that, or they can leave it off. But most of them do choose to adopt it.
Yeah, this is one of those ones where there's not much reason not to. It's funny because when I first read this headline, I thought it meant just resource draining ads were big videos playing or things like that. So I was like, oh, great. And reading the article, I go, oh, I didn't realize they could actually be doing this stuff with my browser. So thank you, Google.
I don't know, Daniel, have you ever encountered that in the wild? Like, I haven't actually encountered one, but I read about them all the time.
I'm sorry, which specifically?
Like a Bitcoin miner that's embedded in a page?
I actually have. I used to peruse certain sites that would allow you to watch television. And
research.
Yeah, for research purposes.
Completely. Asking for a friend.
Yeah. And one day I realized that my fans were just cranking on my computer. I was like, what is going on? So I pulled up the activity monitor, and sure enough, the browser was just eating CPU. And I was like, what is going on? And I realized there was a banner at the top of the page that said, this is a free service. And to keep it free, we're going to mine some Bitcoin with your...
Oh, so they weren't even hiding.
They straight up came out and said, we're going to do this. And then most of those sites have now gone offline. So that was a while ago. So this has been around for a while.
Well, at least they were honest about it. And I mean, effectively though, you are paying just via your electric bill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're exactly right.
Your data usage and all that. But
I was plugged into my neighbor's house. So big long orange cord running from their outside.
And the Wi-Fi too. You're on his Wi-Fi.
Man.
Yeah. When you asked Daniel, are you familiar with this? I was waiting for Daniel to go. By familiar, you mean have I written one of these? Am I doing this now on?
Got to put those kids through college.
Well, Justin's got the beta version, and he's still in testing right now.
I got a special page you can go to listen to Technado from.
So
That's right.
anytime I hear these, I immediately go, I wonder if I could dive deep and then like try to figure out a way like at the edge case, because again, like the sampling rate. They're like, oh yeah, we're just gonna, if it's using over 99% of the CPU usage in 15 seconds over a 30-second period, okay, well, it would be fun to write something that would eat up CPU utilization and see if it would get disabled, and then just start like randomly having pauses in there and say you can not run over 15 seconds, but then that way it doesn't get shut down. I don't know.
Yeah, it would be tricky. I know, like, if it's an application written in C or C++, you have a lot of control over the execution of it. But when it's something embedded in a web page, I don't know how much control you have over the hardware you execute on.
Yeah, you're better off getting a supercomputer.
Definitely. I hear they're easy to log into.
Yeah.
We
got these creds off Pastebin. It's amazing.
All right, our next article is over at TheVerge.com. Edison Mail rolls back update after iOS users reported they could see strangers' email. The company says the issue was caused by a bug, not a security breach. Well, a security breach can be a bug, I guess.
One man's junk,
One
right?
and the same. Yeah. I wonder how long it took people to figure that out, though, when they were just reading email very confused until they realized that it wasn't their email. Because
I've actually had this happen to me before.
Really?
Not with this mail provider, but with Gmail. Years ago, I had a Gmail account, and one day I read this email, and I was like, what is this talking about? And it was about a purchase for a Jeep. And it was from the Jeep company, or the auto sales. I called them up and said, I didn't buy any Jeep. What is this? And they said, well, we've got the invoice right here. We sent it to the email address of, and they gave the email address. And I said, that's not my email address, but I got that email.
Weird.
And it was another Daniel Lowry, but it was like a weird thing in the way Gmail was interpreting periods in the username area of the email account, it was like, so there was another Daniel Lowry, and I had a period in my username, and it just saw us both as the same thing.
There have been a few of these instances over the years. Google had one a while back where there was a problem with their Edge caching servers. So, your mailbox will get cached on Edge servers all over the globe. And something had happened where once you logged in, occasionally you'd be served cached pages of other people's mailbox. And so you were kind of seeing their mailbox, but you weren't actually in it. So it was like a minor leak of data. This one was worse because when you fired up your app, if you had upgraded to the newest version, which I don't know about you guys, but like I have my phone set to automatically do, so it'll automatically update. And then it's an email program, so it's always running. And then when you open the mail program, you were just in someone else's mailbox, and that meant you could read email, you could forward emails, you could do whatever you wanted. The credentials had effectively been handed off at that point. So this was a pretty bad one. They rolled it back in, they say, about 10 hours. So it was a 10-hour window of time that if you had this application and opened it, you were likely served someone else's mailbox. And they tried to downplay it, saying, well, it's just people who use the app during the 10-hour window. But when you're talking about an email app, people use the email app on their phone, I would say at least once every 10 hours, unless they're asleep.
Well, especially if you have push notifications, isn't it always using the app?
I think they're
just when you have the app open.
They were hoping that, you'd get the notifications, but if you didn't look and then it was rolled back in 10 hours, then
it didn't count. Didn't happen. Well, the question is, like, if I was seeing Don's email, does that mean Don was seeing my email, or is it a rolling thing where every person's seeing the next person's email? You could just,
sadly, they haven't come out with any cool anecdotes on how it worked. I think,
like love connections that were made.
Love connections,
couples that were. I mean, I've done this with physical mail, where the mailman puts the wrong thing in your box, and you open it up, go, who's this person, and why'd they send me a birthday card 6 months?
With $150.
Peter just admit
the mail
breaking
fraud.
the law.
Yeah. You open the mail when you get the mail. You don't.
Not when your name's not on it.
It's in my box. It's mine.
Yeah, that's how it works.
No, it's not.
I can't wait to go put that murder weapon in your mailbox.
You heard it here on
Fingerprints all over
Technado.
this.
Like, it's got Peter's fingerprints all over it.
Yeah,
he didn't even read it. I said,
By the way,
Peter, don't touch this.
Your murder just went to a federal crime now.
Yeah. That's right, because you used the U.S. mail. I mailed it to you, right?
Dummy. Yeah, that's what they'll get you for, mail fraud.
What's funny is the sheriff will show up and be like, he hasn't touched it. Opens the mailbox, there's the bloody knife or whatever. He hasn't touched it. Sheriff goes, well, son, I hate to tell you this, but it's in your mailbox. All other evidence is thrown out the window.
Am I the only person that checks their mail maybe once every 2 weeks?
Yes.
Really? Not email. I'm talking about actual mail.
We understand what you're saying.
I check my mailbox every day.
Yeah, because I'm hoping Publisher Clearinghouse is finally going to come through.
No, they come with balloons.
I'm due.
They knock on the door, Justin.
Now, do you have a community mailbox or like?
Yeah, with the key.
Okay, so at least it's locked.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a thing right in my thing, but I got to walk down the block and
You got a mailman that hates your guts.
Did you just say, I got to walk?
Yeah. All the way down the block, and all my bills are digital these days. What are you doing that you? And when I moved, I got the mail email thing now that shows me every day, so I know what's there. I know if something's important is there. You guys have that?
I learned a lesson by not checking my mail because one day I went to use my debit card and it was like, it's declined. I go, that's not right. And they said, oh no, it's declined. So I had to call the company and they said, well, we sent you a new card. There was a data breach and that card was a part of it, so it's no longer active. We sent it to you about 3 weeks ago. I said, oh, well, I guess I'll check my mail. And from then on, I checked my mail.
And Peter was out there going, look at this, look what I got in the mail.
Yeah.
Daniel's debit card.
Where did Gun come from?
Good thing I rode my bicycle down here. I'd have been slick-winded if I'd have walked.
Yeah. The only time I check my mail daily is around my birthday.
When is your birthday? And while you're saying it, can you tell us your social and your mom's maiden name?
I was totally
Where'd you go to high
about
school?
Tell you. God, I'm so dumb. But as a matter of fact,
Did you know if you type in your social security number into LinkedIn, it will hide it automatically?
really,
Yeah, go ahead, try it.
give that a go.
Yeah. Did you
Wait,
know
is
if
this
you
an
send an
elaborate
email to
social
me?
engineering?
No, I feel like we should put out a quick Technado disclaimer.
Yeah, we'll not do
Do not do this.
Do not do that.
Did you know if you tweet your social security number?
Did you
They
know
have,
if you
they have
email it to me?
DLP, right? Yeah, data loss prevention.
All right. Our last article is over at zdnet.com. PrintDemon vulnerability impacts all Windows versions. PrintDemon, well, it repeats the same thing. Released back as far as 1996. Patches available.
There's an old dot matrix printer. It's like the gateway to the mother lode of money.
Woke back up.
And like, oh man, here's a computer with Clippy on it, and look at this, a large closet full of Scrooge McDuck coins.
So are they using these dot matrix printers to mine Bitcoin?
No.
So it's actually not the printer that's the problem here. It's the print spooler, so the software service that runs in Windows, which has been largely unchanged since all the way back in Windows NT4. That's what brings it all the way back to 1996. And it's an interesting one because this one is taking advantage of the way that any user is allowed to add a printer to the system. Because like you don't have to be an admin to add a printer to the system. And there's a neat way they found where they could trick that to allow them to overwrite executables and DLLs that are on the system to perform an exploit. And Daniel, you could probably explain it better than me.
You did a pretty good job, actually. I mean, that's it. They basically said that they figured out that if they were to crash the spooler service and then restart it, it would start up with system privileges. And from there, it would do things like write DLLs. You could write into DLLs, you could create DLLs, you could write to protected space because you're running as NT authority, right? So you have system privileges. So they said, well, that's interesting. So this is not like a remote code execution kind of thing. This is more like a priv-esque thing. So you're not going to be able to use this to gain access into the system. You need to already have some form of access into the system to exploit this. But once you're there, sky's the limit. Now, good news is when I saw this article, there was no patch, there was no nothing. They were talking about how even EDR systems couldn't really do anything about this. But since then, as of today, I believe, right? Patch Tuesdays today.
Yes,
They had they have a patch for that.
the patch is out.
Yep.
Although the patch, it is important to note that the patch will stop the problem from happening in the future. But if you've already been hit by it, the patch doesn't remove the rogue printer. So if you support a large network and you are concerned about this, you probably need to do a scan. And what you're looking for is any printer port that instead of pointing to a network address or an LPT, look for printer ports that are pointed to files. And most people don't use those. So if you find a printer port that's pointing to a file, that usually is an indicator here of this attack. And Daniel hit it on the head that you can't really exploit this remotely. You do need to have access to the machine, but you don't need administrative access. You can just be a regular old user to pull this one off and get in there and tap into it. And the proof of concept they did, they were overwriting the UAL API.dll, which is user access logging. And that means they could change the way the system was doing logging to cover their tracks automatically. And imagine the other DLLs they could hit to modify how admin jobs are being created or even create their own accounts and stuff. It really would give them complete access to the system.
This is a weird metaphor, but this is like having a doorbell that was put in the 70s, and then it no longer rings, but when you touch it, your front door swings open.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get shocked.
Yeah, and sometimes you get shocked. Because, I don't know, whenever I saw the PrintDemon, I was like, oh, they'll never be able to do this because the PrintDemon never works and you never print anything.
That used to be on the test. Back, I got my MCSE for NT4, and back then there would always be a question of, hey, if your printer is not printing, what's the first step you should take? And it was restart the print spooler. So like Microsoft used to just teach you that. Hey, yeah, this is going to crash. Here's how you restart it.
We should ask Jeffrey Snover because it says that you can exploit this with a single PowerShell command. So this is
So this is Jeffrey's fault. He facilitated this.
It's a PowerShell commandlet that's wider than the screen that I'm on.
Yeah.
But it'll restart that spooler service and it'll overwrite those DLLs.
that guy hadn't gotten shot at the Elvis Presley Hospital, then we would have never had this exploit.
Well, it's funny. It's actually a really short PowerShell command because you're just creating a printer port and pointing it to a file. But then they didn't show how to crash the print spooler, and I thought that was almost funnier because you don't actually need a way. You can just wait and it'll do it on its own.
You just hit print, right?
That's you just hit the print button.
Yeah, you're like, I got to print my resume while I'm. Oh, there it goes.
Man, I got root. In this.
Look at this.
I don't even know how that's possible. Oh, it must be that Windows subshell. Sorry. What is it?
Windows
What's that thing
subsystem
called?
for Linux.
Subsystem for Linux. There you go. It always confuses me because it seems like Linux should be first. It's a Linux subsystem for Windows, but
Didn't we talk about why?
we did, and it's stupid.
Yes.
Why?
Linux is trademarked.
Yeah.
And they wanted to avoid any potential claims, lawsuit, whatever. So if they put Linux first, then it might look like it was a official Linux product
And
versus
just
putting
give
Linux.
Linus Torvalds like $10 million and say,
Give him a couple bucks.
yeah, I mean, somebody, BG's got that on him, I'm sure. He's just like, let me dig in my wallet real quick. What's it going to take, Linus? Come on.
10? It's 10?
Yeah,
All right.
10 good? Come on.
He's
For
like, I've
some
got
reason-
this in a jar full of water that was filtered from my urine.
Y'all remember
Taste it.
Celebrity Deathmatch, right?
Oh, yeah, that was great.
So, Bill Gates, Linus Torvalds, Celebrities Deathmatch on who
Winner
which
gets
one
Linux.
comes first. Yeah, yeah,
I'd like to see that.
yeah. Me too.
I see Bill pulling out like sharpened CDs
Yeah.
of IE4.
Encarta.
Yeah.
And sacks of gold.
Bro, I had Encarta. It was-
Yeah, and it came in a lot of CDs, didn't
yeah, it did.
it? Oh, man. Good old days. It's a simpler time.
It was.
Hey, we've got a webinar coming up that's pretty exciting. It is Succeeding with the New Cisco Certifications, Tips from the Pros at IT Pro TV. It's Anthony Sequeira and Ronnie Wong. This Thursday, the same day this comes out, May 21st, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you're just listening to this and it's like 1:30, hit pause, come back to it later, go watch that, because there's a lot of those new certs out right now, NSLED and the other one,
And RC.
Whistle and
Encore.
Encore.
Uncle.
There's something about Whistle. Right?
Whistle?
And
Yeah,
RC.
we had the
An
driver
RC.
an RC too, but there's something with like WSL or something that Anthony called Whistle today.
You were thinking about the Windows subsystem for
Nope.
Linux.
Yeah.
I'm ahead of you.
Yes.
You'll see.
A Linux subsystem for Windows, you mean?
Cisco, their acronyms, they are all over the place right now. And so I could believe it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go ask Anthony right after this. And I look forward to your apology on next week's episode.
Not
Technado
happening.
with Don Pizzette.
He's talking about implementing Cisco Enterprise Wireless Networks, ENWLSI. I could see that being NWS.
So it sounds Arabic, like a lot of the stuff that they do, because I know one Arabic thing, which is I speak Arabic, which is Entip Tarfiarabi.
Yeah, I have that cert.
It's like,
So that's like a useless phrase for you to know.
I know.
Totally unrelated to everything. I'm doing Duolingo right now to learn Dutch because my dad speaks it. And I thought it'd be fun.
that's cool.
And the phrase I got the other day from Duolingo was, "Pardon me, I am an apple." I'm like, when's this gonna come
This
up?
is helpful. They said a lot over there.
Yeah. And then my daughter the next day got, "I am not an apple." So I need to to correct myself.
Well, I'm glad you cleared that up because I was confused.
Maybe that's the divide. Their civil war, like their racism is.
Are you an apple?
You're not one of them apples. are you?
Pardon, ik ben an apple.
What's the drug usage policy?
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah.
I think that's what John F. Kennedy said too. Ik ben an apple.
An apple.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure. Maybe it was supposed to be like an Apple user. Maybe it was the trademark. I'm not sure. I'll have to look back. But anyway, yeah, check out that webinar. That's over at itpro.tv/webinars. You can also see all of the past webinars. The one we just did on Help Desk Health Check is on there, archived. Evolve Server Management with Windows Admin Center. Those are all there. itpro.tv/webinars. And while you're on that internet, head over to go.itpro.tv/technado. You can get a coupon code for 30% off your personal membership. You can also request a demo for your team and learn all about the business plans and the Pro Portal and all the great stuff there at go.itpro.tv/technado. All right, good episode today, guys, and it was great talking with Dennis Hunter. What did we say we searched? Dennis Hunter Rucker?
No.
Unlinked?
Dennis Rutger Hunter.
Rucker Hunter?
Rutgers Hunter.
Rucker.
Rucker.
R-U-C-K-E-R.
Yep.
Darius.
Nope,
Darius
I
Rucker.
knew someone was going there.
It's Hootie.
No relation to Hootie.
I'm not Hootie.
I know.
Have you ever seen the Key and Peele
I have. Yeah, no, that's great.
Funny.
Yeah, poor
I miss Hootie and the Blowfish because have you heard Darius Rucker's new music?
Dude, Hootie and the Blowfish used to crank out the tune.
I miss Key and Peele.
Isn't he a country singer now?
He is.
Okay.
Which honestly, Hootie and the Blowfish was kind of, when you listen back to it, it's kind of got a little
I can hear it.
country twang to it. But yeah, it's great.
The steel guitar through it, give it away.
I just remember when I heard "Round Here" the first time, and it made me realize
Isn't
that.
that Counting Crows?
Counting Crows.
Oh, is it not the same?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not the same. No, different band. Never mind.
Wow.
Well, finish your thought. I'm interested. to see what you're
90s
gonna
alt
say.
rock trivia.
If you're ever bored, listen to the song "Round Here," and it will help you realize that literally anyone on this planet can be a musician because that song is devoid of any talent. Like,
Have you heard Rihanna's Umbrella?
no, I haven't.
Oh,
Does it
what-
top it?
Oh yes,
oh, yes.
yes. So here's how you write a pop song: pick a noun, and you're done.
Remember Rob Zombie saying that about More Human Than Human? He's like, I hate these songs, but you got to do these radio ones where you just say the same thing over and over to get stuck in people's heads, and that's how you make a hit.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's exactly what More Human Than Human is.
All right, I'm going to go write a song, make
Yeah,
that money.
get on that. I'm gonna hijack a supercomputer and have it write one for me.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much, and thank you all of you out there watching. We'll see you next week right here on Technado with Don Pizzetto.